Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach, and today we have us Rick Mosley, who is the president of Black Pearl Insurance Solutions. Rick, welcome to the program.
Hello, Mike, and thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about your business because I know that everybody has a specific entrepreneurial journey. At some point you weren't a business owner or an entrepreneur, and then as you progressed and you opened up your business, I know that there are some exciting things in everyone's past that leads them through there. So give us a little bit of your background in the entrepreneurial journey, and then let's talk about what you do to serve your clients.
Okay, that's great, and thanks for asking about that. So, my journey started over 20 years ago, and it really started in the insurance side of the business, working for the insurance carriers and the like, specifically Anthem. At one point, it was known at WellPoint. I started in the business very young, was eager to learn everything I could about insurance, and I was just a sponge. And what I found is, the more I learned in the organization, the more I grew. I went through the ranks, rose up to executive position. But while I was working in that industry, I also became the go-to expert for many of my friends and family in regards to all things insurance. So oftentimes I would have, someone come to me and say, "Hey, Rick, my mother or my father or my brother, et cetera, they've got a plan. They're looking at, what would you recommend?" And I provide feedback to them. Or I'll have someone say, "Hey, my grandmother or aunt or uncle, they're about to retire. They're looking at getting Medicare. What do you recommend? What are some options? What should they look for?" And I would start to do that. And that's, started my journey towards looking at potentially addressing the needs of individuals through my own organization. Because what I found is that it progressed not just from insurance, but also to asking questions about, Social Security and the like. Rick, when it comes to claiming Social Security, we have an option. Should I claim it now? Should I claim it later? Should my mother claim it now? Should I claim it later? And I'd help them with the research, and I'd get back to them. But what I also found was that in doing so, I'd pass them off to other individuals, and they would receive some of what they needed, but not all. So I started Black Pearl because I wanted to provide a certain service level to the people that I work with, and I wanted to make sure that the solutions that they were provided with were ones that worked specifically for their needs. So that's my journey in a nutshell, right?
I love that because the thread of commonality through that whole statement that I hear is you care about your clients and you want to make sure they get the very best thing, and not a little bit of information from this over here and then something else over here, and then you got to piece it together. So I really like that. It resonates really well, and it sounds also like almost being a one-stop shop in the sense of that if you send someone out to get a certain need met financially or insurance-wise, and then they come back to you for the other things, well, maybe it didn't fit with your overall plan and strategy that you had for them. So maybe keeping it all under one roof and serving your clients that way really now has helped you provide that level of service that you wanted to deliver.
Indeed, it definitely has. I have found that to be the case.
And then, obviously, let's even clarify and pull the layers back even more. Rick Mosley cannot be the expert in every single financial product known to mankind, right? So you have to have people on your team that, okay, well, when you need this type of product, I'm going to bring in our team lead over here. So I think that's another big aspect to consider is the team approach that you bring, right?
That is correct. And as you stated, even though I would like to know everything, it's impossible to know everything. Anyone who says they do, well, may not be 100%. But in my case, I have this strategy. I know the overall strategy, and I know what works overall. But when it comes to individual components, when it comes to specifics, that's where I utilize my specialists.
Yes.
So if someone came in, we were developing a plan, and there was a certain aspect of the plan that I had general knowledge of that required the specialist, and I'm going to bring in my specialist to take the lead on that, have them work on that. Then we bring it back and reincorporate into the plan for our clients.
Yeah, because you know what that aspect needs to accomplish based on your overall plan and strategy blueprint. So, you're guiding the process, and then other people are making sure they execute to that. I think that's just spectacular. So let's dive a little bit into what you briefly mentioned on Social Security, because as we all know, we might not want to admit it, but retirement will come sooner than we expect. And no matter what we think, most people just tend not to be as ready as they could be. So if Social Security really is, the cornerstone of retirement income, what are some of the basics that you talk to your clients about in teaching them or working with them on how to prepare?
That is a great question. Well, as it relates to Social Security, as you said, it is a cornerstone of retirement. And it's one that many people don't think about until they're getting close to retirement or they're right on the verge of retirement. My recommendation for my clients would be to think about it as and try to address it as soon as you can. The earlier you address it, the better. If you wait until it's too late, then your options may be limited, because there's a variety of strategies that can be employed as it relates to Social Security. People can claim the Social Security early. They can claim it late. They can go ahead and take it, when they're eligible for retirement. However, if someone were to claim it early, they are not going to be receiving 100% of the Social Security payout that they will receive if they were to claim it. If they were to claim it when they are actually eligible at their full retirement age. If they decide to delay it from their full retirement age to age 70, there's some significant increases in the Social Security payout, and it's around the neighborhood of 8% per year, which could be significant, but it depends on everyone's situation. So my recommendation would be, when it comes to retirement planning, when it comes to Social Security, you can take it and try to develop a plan to incorporate it as early as you can. If you can do it at the beginning of your career, that's great. If you can even do it earlier, maybe in high school, if you're a parent and you have teenage children, it's maybe something you maybe want to help them to consider, because there are a variety of solutions that could be implemented and interwoven in order to maximize one's Social Security when the payout at the time that it's paid out when they are at retirement age.
Yeah, and I think that, as with anything, there is not one cookie cutter plan out there that works for every single human being. Everyone's different. Everyone's financial situation is different. Everyone's health or future goals are different. So it's not as simple as putting a check mark in the box, please send me my Social Security benefits at this age. There's a lot more that goes into it. And from what I understand, and this is something that I'm sure you stress to your clients you work with, let's make sure that the decision that is made is the best for you, because once you make that Social Security decision, you can't change it. It's not like you can, do it one way one year and one way the next year. Once you make that election, it's done. So you got to make sure it's done the right way.
Mm-hmm. That is absolutely correct. Yeah, so it's imperative that you plan for it, because, as you stated, once that decision is made, and once you made that election, that is an election that's going to that's going to be utilized for your Social Security for the remainder of your time. So definitely.
And since it's such a big decision, I feel like a lot of people, whenever they need something, and I do this probably a couple times a day, like, let me just Google it. So I know that a lot of people could get information about Social Security from Google or even the Social Security Administration's website. And that's wonderful for a baseline foundational knowledge about things. But I'm sure you would not advise people just to, go look on Google and make your decision. You got to do a little bit more than that. But let's talk a little bit about working with a financial professional to help them make these decisions, because it is so important to make them the correct way up front.
You bring up a very good point, Mike. And I can say that we're all in our current era, guilty of using Google and using it to look up information, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, when it comes to making financial decisions, Google is not able to incorporate or take someone's specific scenario, specific financial situation into account in order to provide for an optimal outcome. I would liken this to possibly using Google to self-diagnose or self-medicate. I may use Google to get an idea of what's wrong with me, but when I need to actually get a prescription or receive a surgery or some type of other medical procedure, I go to my primary care physician. I go to my doctor, provide them with the not with the diagnosis, but with the idea of the problems that I'm facing. I convey to them my symptoms, and they come back to me with some solutions in regards to how we move forward. And that should be the same that people would do with a financial professional as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I know that maybe people have heard this before, but you don't know what you don't know. And certainly there are some things that people think, oh, well, my finances are here and there, and I've got this account. But there's some strategies and things that you just might not be aware of. And what I would ask you, kind of like last question to wrap up our talk here, do you feel like there's a time where if you work with a couple and they're like, okay, we feel like we might be able to claim Social Security a few years later to get some of the better benefits, but we don't know how we can bridge the gap between now when I can claim and a few years down the road? What are some of the things that you would look for and maybe make recommendations for with their finances to help them kind of bridge that gap so that maybe they can maximize their Social Security down the road?
Well, it really depends on the time frame that we're looking at in regards to that discussion. Mm-hmm. They're talking about retiring 20 years down the road, and they're looking at bridging that gap. Then there are a variety of solutions and strategies that can be utilized to help them bridge that gap. There's many financial products in the market that could be brought up, and provided to that particular client. In order to help them bridge that gap. And, at Black Pearl, we do have tools and software that we utilize to help identify those solutions. If it's someone who is closer to retirement and they're also looking to bridge that gap, once again, it all depends on their particular scenario because, as we all know, retirement is based on three sources. You have your Social Security. You have a pension if you're lucky enough to work for a company that provides one, and then you have a variety of savings options, your 401ks, your investments, etc. So depending on where they are with that three-legged stool, as we would call it, we take a look at those options. We would take a look at what's available and try to help them develop a plan where they can maximize the resources that they have available in order to close that gap. However, if we're able to do it early, if we're able to do it with over a longer time frame and take advantage of the time value of money, that is always the best option.
Yes. And I think that that's such a perfect answer because it reiterates the fact that we do need to make these planning decisions well ahead of any deadlines. And I love how your little tagline or phrase is, stress-free retirement. Well, if you put things off and you go, oh, now I need to retire in this short time frame, that gap is really short and you do not have as many options available to you. And it's like, oh, if we'd only had this much time, we could do so many other things. So that stress sometimes can be self-imposed because we just put it off and oh, that's down the road. Well, guess what? Down the road, we'll be here the day after tomorrow. Time flies. So I really like how you put that, let's give us some runway to work with.
Oh, definitely. As stated, the more time we have, the more stress-free your retirement can be. So, to anyone out there who's listening, just make sure that you regardless of when you're going to retire, start planning as soon as you can because you want to make it as stress-free as possible.
100%. Well, if anyone wants to start their stress-free retirement today and reach out and learn a little bit more about yourself and your firm, what's the best way that they can connect with you?
There are a couple options there, Mike. We do have a website. So our website address is myblackpearl.co. Also, we can be reached at our phone number, 424-625-3173.
Excellent. Well, Rick, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Well, thank you for the time, Mike. The pleasure was mine.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.